It's been easy to appreciate the stories of nostalgia a player feels when a new player like myself jumps on to an old title they used to play, like Vindictus. The pros, the cons, but nonetheless, something that was way ahead of its time at the time of its release. Playing it now as a new player in 2024, it's easy to understand the appeal for those that enjoyed it. I myself have invested too much time learning about this game that I've forgotten what the color of grass outside looks like. So let me break it down. Thanks to the developers for sponsoring this video series. Links in the description if you want to check out Vindictus for yourself. And let's pick up where we left off last time. So recently I have hit level 110 and was given some free gear for hitting this level that I must use moving forward. This set specifically I'm going to start to need to upgrade, and I don't want to use other stuff from earlier on. Hovering over this gear and pressing shift allows me to show statistical differences between the gear, and I can compare these gear stats to know what I need to use as I remove some of this early game clutter. At this point, it's all about my character power level. To get there, I'm going to need to upgrade the rest of my skill tree, enhance my gear, and perform activities that give me permanent stats overall. This has now become my main focus. Eventually, into endgame, newer gear does become available through completing raid content. This isn't for a while now, and the level 110 set of gear is what I'm going to be pushing for the next bit ahead of me. So say goodbye to grass, my friends. It's time for the grind to begin. Now, as a seasoned MMO player and professional no life, the grind is built into my soul, and the tolerance for emotional disappointment is now numb. To my surprise, things to do in the endgame had more options than I had originally anticipated. One of the main things is finishing up this very long story. I went through lots of this in my last video, so I'm not going to mention much of it here. I'm still skipping through the dialogue in my sleep. But the player growth chart becomes a must complete because this has a ton of goodies for some quick early progress and became a must-do task. Grinding daily and weekly content seems to be the must-do approach from here. Red Moon Energy, which has jars to break and trees to gather, becomes a good task to do for materials. I also do cover this in the previous video. Though this weekly and daily content like the Abyssal Tower and 8-man raid has better rewards on top of the potential for some bonus loot items that I could sell on the player market. But my luck is shit, so I'm not going to get my hopes up anytime soon. It's cool to see that getting a party and queuing up with randoms this far into the game's lifetime is actually still a thing. And the marketplace has become my friend, where I can buy materials needed for upgrades and selling whatever loot that I'm not going to use. But all of this is good to do for the bigger picture and great for pushing away any chance of seeing my girlfriend ever again. Okay, so now the important stuff. Let me first start off by saying that everything I've been in need of has been either obtainable through the grindable content as mentioned prior or purchasable off the player-driven marketplace. But let's talk about gear enhancing. So now the true MMO player comes out. Starting off with, my main focus of progression is going to be on my gear, which I used enhancing materials that are grindable in-game or buyable off the marketplace as mentioned. My luck turned out to be pretty decent so far, with even 2-tapping some low chance items, but I tried to focus on my weapon and getting as much attack power as I can early on. But when something does fail, it can break, and when things break, you also need to repair it so we can click again. Thank God for that marketplace. And luckily, in-game currency is earned through performing almost every activity, so don't worry about that. Now let's talk about the enchantments that I can put onto my gear. So these colorful scrolls in game that have spat out a ton to me in the early game have extra special stats that I can place onto my gear. Every enchanting scroll does have something specific on it, and I use the player market to apply something to start off with while I work towards better ones overall. To keep this simple, there's 2 types of slots that these scrolls can go into in your gear. They're called suffix and prefix scrolls, which you can just call the 1 and 2 slot. Applying the right scrolls to the proper slots can help maximize your potential power, and these scrolls can be applied to all of your gear. This is a good thing to min-max. And following up, let's talk about Infusion, another place where you can find more bonus stats which can be applied throughout all of your gear through special stones. Now, some of these stones you can obtain and also buy have guaranteed stats that can be applied to your gear. But for the most part, these stones will have randomized chances at random stats that can either have a positive or even negative effect. And for my case scenario, I actually got incredibly lucky with a good stat roll. But the long story short on these is open lots of these on your gear, hope for the best in what you want to get what you want, and become stronger. And more importantly, make sure to open the appropriate character window in order to apply these stats. Okay, following up, we have tuning and polishing. To keep this simple, this one's more of a guaranteed system where you simply need to obtain materials in order to upgrade your gear and push your character statistics. Attack, defense, attack speed, all that good stuff. These extra stats that you can earn can help towards your character exceed any statistical caps that a mission may also have. Essentially, you're tuning your gear to help exceed mission caps so you can clear them faster. Okay, now we have the Ein Locker. I'm probably saying this wrong. I'm sorry. So this is a game mode with battle quests that you may be familiar with. However, these are more of a challenge mode where there are challenges to these fights and you can obtain medals for completion of these challenges. This game mode seems more Soulsborne-like, where only attack speed seems to matter, all other gear seems to not. And upon completion, points are given out each gold, silver, and bronze medals, and permanent character statistics are given based on each medal point. There's also been a ranking system that has recently been added, where you're able to flex your performance amongst the community across the ranked leaderboard. And last on my list, I have the Redeemers. Now, this is the 8-man group content that I've mentioned prior. And while also this content has weekly resets, it's important to run in order to also achieve permanent character statistics as well. So it becomes important to complete the content that you can, because it all paves the way for you into the later game. Now, for the Redeemers challenges, I've been told this is a must-do and is another very important piece of content to complete for very impactful character statistics. Okay, now, so clearly there is a lot on my plate now with things that I can do and work on. But in the background, there are other passive things that are good to pay attention to as well as work towards. While working on anything, it's good to keep track of daily, weekly, and monthly missions through the temporal missions. Keeping up with this is good for any min-maxing. And when you look at these missions, the missions will explain themselves on where you can find them, what to do, and they're very simple to follow. There's also a special bonus loot currency for raids in Abyssal Arena called cores. Now, to make this simple, there are two types of cores, one which resets daily and the other which resets weekly, just like the mission content that you do. But you can apply these cores before going out on a mission and starting it, and upon completion, there will be bonus rewards and XP at the end of it. And long story short, these are a must-use if you're ever doing this content. And lastly, we have the Seal Shop, which simply put is just a special currency shop towards rewards you can also buy. You can earn a variety of currencies through the completion of a variety of activities, and those currencies in turn can be used for these specific shops while consuming those different seals. A lot of this content is performed in-game through in-game events, as well as community stuff that you can participate in through their social media. For example, you can see here that I have these Seals of Bravery. These are earned simply through just running the battle quest missions, and I can use the Bravery Seal Shop to get some materials that I needed for my character's progress. So overall, my focus is on everything. Play the game, grind all the content inside, and progress towards my character's overall statistics. I'm just on the cusp of level 115 and will be pushing towards the end game content, but I won't be dipping my toes anytime soon in the late game content, as there is much still yet to be done and a lot more ahead of me yet still to do. Passive skills, player growth, story, enhancing gear, tuning things. You get the point. But ahead of me, the space-time distortion, I would consider the next difficulty tier of 8-man raid content. Currently, I'm not strong enough to do yet, but this is the direction that I'm going to have my character push towards and trying to gain as many stats as possible to get entry level into these higher geared level raids. And while there is a lot for me to do, I'm going to save that for next time. So shout out to the developers again for sponsoring this second video on Vindictus. I hope you've enjoyed this and this was a fun watch. And if you want to try Vindictus for yourself, myself, links as always are going to be in the description down below. I'd say I'm doing pretty good so far. My gear's enhanced, the vast majority of my character skills are fully leveled up, and I've successfully missed 2 voicemails from my mom and a dozen more text messages from my girlfriend. Am I doing it right?